Hey crew, it's Pitt and I'm back with some more Esoterica. Today we are diving back into the works of Laozi. This is the Dao De Jing. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various points brought to light by the text. It is not the format for everyone, but people do find value in it, so you are more than welcome to tag along as we continue our exploration. Before we begin, however, if you have never seen me before, if you are unfamiliar with any of my unconventional ideas, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there will be several playlists linked in the corner above and the box down below, along with the original source material and the link for my book, which teaches you to do magic responsibly, so that you can get a better understanding of who I am and why I say the things that I do. In addition to that, I have recently decided to open myself up to personal consultations for tarot, MBTI, or spiritual advice. I am a pastor. Consider me as such. With that being said, we are going to dive in and continue our exploration of the Dao De Jing with part 22. The partial becomes complete, the crooked straight, the empty full, the worn out new. He whose desires are few gets them. He whose desires are many goes astray. That is mostly true, right? The partial becomes complete, right? That is in the spiritual process, of course. The crooked straight, that is part of the spiritual process. The empty full, the worn out new. Again, the renewal that comes from, right? You get renewed spiritually by going to sleep. You get renewed spiritually by seeking God. These are things that happen. If your desires are few, you will get them. And if your desires are many, you may go astray. That is true, but it is not a guarantee, right? It is possible to have things and be generous still. Right? You are not meant to give away everything. You are meant to have things, and you are to desire to accomplish. That is something that is for you. Right? Nobody is not to accomplish. That accomplishment is not entirely internal. If you are sitting in meditation all day, you are wasting life. You are free to make that decision, but I got a feeling when you get home, you're going to regret making that decision. Therefore, the sage holds in his embrace the one thing of humility and manifests it to all the world. He is free from self display and therefore he shines, from self assertion and therefore he is distinguished, from self boasting and therefore his merit is acknowledged, from self complacency and therefore he acquires superiority. It is because he is thus free from striving that therefore no one in the world is able to strive with him. The saying of the ancients that the partial becomes complete was not vainly spoken. All real completion is comprehended under it. Okay, so Holden has embraced the one thing, the spirit, not necessarily humility. It is entirely possible to overtake in humility, to give away the credit that is actually due to you. Right? You should give away as much credit as you possibly can. Take as much blame as you possibly can. That is the path of humility. But there is false humility. If you have done a job well and you are denying that, that is just as bad as taking credit for something that you did not do. It is denial of self, which is a bad thing, right? Not necessarily like if you are overconsumption, denying yourself the ability to overconsume is balance, right? But if you are not taking credit for yourself, that is denial of self in a negative way. You will have dreams and aspirations. Those come from the Creator. You are meant to accomplish them, and sometimes the only way to do that is to do exactly the opposite of this paragraph, right? Free from self-display and therefore he shines. That is true, right? If you are engaged in a job and you are working, your work will speak for itself. There is no need to boast. But that is not always evident. Sometimes you have made improvements over the current system. And if you have made improvements over the current system, absolutely nobody is going to understand that unless you are giving it out, unless you are putting yourself on display, unless you are allowing the world to see the thing will never get to the world. Self-assertion, in that particular instance, what I have done is better than what has been done. That would be self-assertion. in a humble way. This is a actual thing that actually works better than the old thing. I discovered this. It was a flash of intuition from God, but it was my flash of intuition given to me. My assertion is that this is better. That is self-assertion. There is nothing wrong with that. Again, work will speak for itself, but it has to be recognized first. And so why you should not be going, hey, have you seen what I did? Did you see what I did? Standing in the fact that you have done something, there's nothing wrong with that. Maintain an air of humility. Understand that you can be corrected even in things that you believe you are correct about. Maintaining that air, that is humility. Understanding that even if you believe you have the right understanding, it can be corrected. That is humility. It is not just giving away credit, right? Don't just give away the credit. Now, self-boasting, again, in moderation is not a bad thing. Self-talk creates your reality. And if you are saying, I suck, guess what your reality is going to be? But if you're saying, I am great, guess what your reality is going to be? You get to choose. The things that you speak about yourself literally creates the aura in which you are in. It creates the physicality of your life, and it calls into your life the things that you speak. So if you are speaking negative, you're going to receive negative. If you are speaking positive, you're going to receive positive. If you are overinflating yourself, that is negative, right? But if you are underinflating yourself, if you are selling yourself short and not taking the credit, that is equally as bad. Equally as bad. Self-complacency is not the drive to accomplish things. Don't have that. Self-complacency does not acquire superiority, right? Complacency is the ability to take what is there, right? To be satisfied in the current situation. That has nothing to do with superiority at all. Free from striving is stupid. That is victim mentality, and we are not going to deal with that, right? It is because he is thus free from striving that therefore no one in the world is able to strive with him. That has to be a misinterpretation, right? If you are free from conflict, maybe no one will be able to conflict with you. Striving is the desire to accomplish, right? That can be the desire to accomplish picking these berries off of the bush so that I can eat them, right? Now that is an extreme example of the underconsumption part of it, but striving is the desire to accomplish. That is what a strive is. That is what you are doing when you are striving, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that at all in the slightest. You are meant to have desires. You are meant to accomplish those. The only way to do so is to strive for them. 23. Abstaining from speech marks him who is obeying the spontaneity of his nature. A violent wind does not last for a whole morning. A sudden rain does not last for the whole day. To whom is it that these two things are owing? To heaven and earth. If heaven and earth cannot make such spasmodic actings last long, how much less can man? These are not necessarily true. They're not, right? I don't know about you, but I live in South Louisiana. And here in South Louisiana, about once a year, for about 6 months, we have a window of concern. That window of concern is called hurricane season. It begins on June the 1st and it ends on December the 31st. And for those 6 months, there is a possibility of a storm in the Gulf or in the Atlantic, but it affects me in the Gulf, right? If that storm comes in, there can be a violent wind that lasts for the entire day, not just for the morning. It can last for multiple days, and the gust can be consistent for an entire day. That is a possibility. And so a violent wind can indeed last for a whole morning. That is a possibility. A sudden rain, generally speaking, this one's pretty close to true, right? If there is going to be a long rain event, we know about it ahead of time these days. Not in those days, right? And it is entirely possible that you can be taken by surprise by a storm. We have done that here with actual real storms, right? Like we have radar, we still get pop-up storms that are completely unexpected. Do they last for the whole day? Not normally, but that is in the realm of possibility. Right? It is not more likely. The violent wind is more likely, but either one of them can actually happen. This is the denial of that. Right? Um, to whom is it that the two things are owing? Heaven and earth. That is true. Right? And if heaven and earth cannot make such actions last long, how much so less a man? Okay, right? You're not making the violent wind. You're not making the rain, but you can make things move. You can make things last. That is possible. And this abstaining from speech marks him who is obeying the spontaneity of his nature. What? What? Right now, your speech should be guided speech. It should be useful speech. It should be productive speech. It should be positive speech. And so, abstaining from negative speech, from self doubt and self limitations, talking bad about others, abstain from that. But that's not obeying spontaneity. How? What? How? How are you obeying spontaneity? By denying the thing that comes to you. Now, granted, that can be a positive thing, but it's not obeying spontaneity to do it. And even why would you want to obey spontaneity? There is a time for intuitive flashes, but there is also a time to reflect upon those intuitive flashes before you make a decision about them. Right? Intentionality might play a part in production. Therefore, when one is making the Tao his business, those who are also pursuing it agree with him in it, and those who are making the manifestation of its course their object agree with him in that. While even those who are failing in both these things agree with him where they fail. Yeah, right? Those who are doing what you are doing will agree with you if you are doing it correctly. Okay. Those who are making the manifestation of its course their object agree with him in that is specific about the production, not necessarily the way. And while even those who are failing in both agree with him where they fail. That's an interesting way of putting it. Because that is intimating that you're not failing, and how are they agreeing with you if they are failing and you are not? That's not an agreement. Hence, those with whom he agrees as to the Tao have the happiness of attaining it. Those with whom he agrees as to its manifestation have the happiness of attaining to it. And those with whom he agrees in their failure have also the happiness of attaining to the Tao. But when there is not faith sufficient on his part, a want of faith in him ensues on the part of others. Right? This is projecting faith. This is being the light that shows the way. And if you are not sure if you are on the way, you're not going to show the way correctly. Right? But overall, this is just like if you were doing it in, whatever. 24. He who stands on his tiptoes does not stand firm. He who stretches his legs does not walk easily. So, he who displays himself does not shine. He who asserts his own views is not distinguished. He who vaunts himself does not find his merit acknowledged. He who is self-conceited has no superiority allowed to him. Such conditions, viewed from the standpoint of the Tao, are like remnants of food or a tumor on the body, which all dislike. Hence, those who pursue the course of the Tao do not adopt and allow them. Okay, so if you are standing on your tiptoes, you do not have a firm stance. That is true. He who stretches his legs does not walk easily. I do that intentionally as a exercise in my morning walks. And that is true. I am pushing myself. It is not easy. There is definitely easier ways to walk. But this next part, right? He who displays himself does not shine. Again, with the caveat, right? You are not to be prideful, but you are to take pride. You do a job well, there is well reason to be prideful about it. Don't be prideful, but have pride. And that's going to be for all of this, right? If you do not assert your own views, you don't change anything. Stagnation is bad. If you have an intuitive leap, you are meant to change things. He who vaunts himself does not find his merit acknowledged is not necessarily true, right? It is on one level. If you're out there bragging about yourself, people will dismiss you. That is a natural outflow of that. So don't brag about yourself, but stand in what you know, right? If you know that this is true, the only way that anyone else can confirm that is if you acknowledge the merit of the idea and of yourself. You are worthy. God did create you for a purpose. He who is self-conceited has no superiority allowed to him other than the sense of self-superiority which you have, right? You should not be conceited. That is an emphatic. Such conditions are like remnants of food or a tumor in the body. Again, I disagree with the victim mentality of most of this. 25. There was something undefined and complete coming into existence before heaven and earth, and how still it was and formless, standing alone and undergoing no change, reaching everywhere and in no danger of being exhausted. It may be regarded as the mother of all things. That would be the spirit. There was something undefined and complete coming into existence before heaven and earth. That would be, right, before the beginning there was God, and God was infinite and without form. The void, so to speak. And then God decided to become the creation and therefore limited himself from the infinite into the finite of our creation. We do not understand the limits of that finiteness, but they are there. The Spirit is composed entirely of God, but it is not God in his entirety. But it is all of creation in its entirety, even though all of creation in its entirety is not the entirety of the Holy Spirit. In the exact same way, on a lesser level, microcosm, macrocosm. Those things are true, right? And the Holy Spirit is something that was undefined and complete. Whenever God decided to become, he became the beginning. In that moment, in stasis, like a snapshot, everything was created. Every single atom in existence, all at once. None of them combined into anything more. All in a very elemental existence. And then God spoke and said, I am the light, and became the light, and the light was good. And then change began to happen. That moment when he decided, I am the light, and he became the light, was the Logos, spirit in motion, right? How still it was and formless was the spirit in the beginning, before the combination of the elements into the things that we regard as matter. And it may be regarded as the mother of all things. That is, the Holy Spirit, not as the child, but as the producer, right? Yet the void would actually be the better appellation for the mother. The Logos, the spirit becoming, would actually be the divine masculine, the thing that comes into the void to create. That would be a better way of looking at it. The black, the absorptive, the generative, or the generative, the one that produces from the materials, that's going to be the feminine. The part that goes into the other, impregnates, inseminates, seeds, that's going to be the masculine. That would be the spirit. I know that is an unconventional thing, but I got a whole book full of unconventional things, right? It is a much better fit. And the only reason that it is this way, the only reason that it is considered the mother and not the father, is because the father is meant to be all powerful, and therefore he has to be God, and therefore he is the void. That is anthropomorphizing God. God has no genitals that we know of. Back to the text. I do not know its name, and I give it the designation of the Tao, the way, or course, making an effort further to give it a name. I call it the Great Great. It passes on in constant flow. Passing on, it becomes remote. Having become remote, it returns. Therefore the Tao is great. Heaven is great, earth is great, and the Sage King is also great. In the universe, there are 4 that are great, and the Sage King is one of them. Man takes his law from the earth, and the earth takes his law from heaven. Heaven takes its law from the Tao. The law of the Tao is its being what it is. And again, we just had the whole explanation of this, right? I don't know its name. I call it the Spirit instead of the Tao. Right? I follow the Spirit. I follow the way of the Spirit, the course of the Spirit. I also call it great. And so I am in accordance with this. Maybe not as expressed, but in spirit for sure. Passing on, it becomes remote. I am not in agreement with, however, right? The logos, the spirit in motion, is quite literally the thing that turns your food into fuel. It turns your oxygen that you breathe into the things that help power your fingertips. When you make a decision for the 5D navigation device that is your body, with your soul, which is the representative of the divine, the spirit is the part that makes it happen. It fires the synapses, it sends the electrical signals. It is electricity. And so for me, it cannot be remote, right? Your understanding of it can be remote. Your agreement with it, your acceptance of it, those can be remote. But even in those, when you are denying the spirit, you're still made up entirely of the spirit. Every single atom in your body is the spirit. All of the molecules combined into the various compounds is the spirit expressing you. And so it cannot be remote from you. It can seem remote, but that is because of your understanding, not because of the physicality of it. The Sage King, that would be the divinely inspired masculine in maturity, right? And I don't know that I necessarily agree with identifying the mortal, which is what the king would be. Now, this is saying heaven is great, that is not mortal. Earth is great, that is not mortal. The Tao is great, that would be spirit. This would be the divine, and this would be the physicality. So this is the soul. This would be spirit, soul, body. The combination of those 3 into the 4 is what makes you happen. And so your spirit is great in that context, but not necessarily in the physical incarnation context. But this part is true as well. Man takes his law from the earth, the physicality. Earth takes his law from the heaven, God. And heaven takes its law from the Tao, the spirit in action, which is actually still part of God. And so that does make it sense, at least. 26. Gravity is the root of lightness. Stillness, the ruler of movement. That is not entirely untrue, right? If there is no gravity, you are lighter. Therefore, gravity can be considered the root of lightness. Now, we do not have the right understanding of gravity at all. And the ruler of movement, stillness being the ruler of movement. If you are still, you are not moving. Therefore, you are moved or ruled by. But the opposite of either of these could be true, right? Movement can be the ruler of stillness. It is by ceasing to move that you become still. It is by ceasing to be still that you start to move. Those are interchangeable. Neither is necessarily the ruler of the other. Therefore, a wise prince marching the whole day does not go far from his baggage wagons. Although he may have brilliant prospects to look at, he quietly remains in his proper place, indifferent to them. How should the lord of a myriad chariots carry himself lightly before the kingdom? If he do act lightly, he has lost his root of gravity. If he proceed to act of movement, he will lose his throne. 27. The skillful traveler leaves no traces of his wheels or footsteps. The skillful speaker says nothing that can be found fault with or blamed. The skillful reckoner uses no tallies. The skillful closer needs no bolts or bars. While to open what he has shut will be impossible. The skillful binder uses no strings or knots, while to unloose what he has bound will be impossible. In the same way, the sage is always skillful at saving men, and so he does not cast away any man. He is always skillful at saving things, and so he does not cast away anything. This is called hiding the light of his procedure. Therefore, the man of skill is a master to be looked up to by him who has not the skill, and he who has not the skill is the helper of the reputation of him who has the skill. If the one did not honor his master and the other did not rejoice in his helper, an observer, though intelligent, might greatly err about them. This is called the utmost degree of mystery. All right, so there's a couple things here. Sorry. It is true, right? If you are a skillful traveler, you will leave no traces. But that requires an extraordinary amount of effort. If you trod upon the ground, there will be a trace of it. And if you want to cover that up, you can acquire that skill. It is a thing. It is trailcraft, I think is the actual term for it. And you can go back and you can cover your footsteps and you can correct the grass and move the blades. All of that is a possibility. And so if you are skillful in that way, you can indeed do that. It is wasteful, right? Unless you are being pursued, unless you are being pursued, unless there is some reason to hide your path, there is no reason to hide your path. I'm not hiding my path for sure. The skillful speaker says nothing that can be found fault with or blamed is a blatant fucking lie. Blatant lie, right? Now, that is the understanding of, right? And so, if someone says something that is factually incorrect, like completely wrong, like say for instance they say that carbon is causing the collapse of the planet, that is a completely incorrect statement. There is nothing even resembling truth contained in that statement. As a matter of fact, the opposite of that statement is the truth. And if you say nothing that can be found fault with from someone who is saying something that is factually incorrect, you are not doing what you are supposed to do. That is not to go out and be like, you're wrong. This is wrong. You are wrong. Right? This is, well, here's the actual correct information. Right? This is the actual facts of the situation. Carbon is plant food. The more carbon that we have in the atmosphere, specifically floating around in the air, the better plants live. We, right now, here in real time, today is the 11th of September, right? Today, right now, we are dangerously close to not having enough carbon in the atmosphere for plants to be able to survive. That is a reality. Now, there are people who will take exception to that fact. It is a fact. It doesn't matter if you take exception to it or not. This should say that a truthful speaker, not skillful but truthful, will say nothing that can be found fault with. That is entirely different than a skillful speaker saying nothing, right? That is speaking the truth, and if you find exception with the truth, that is your problem. If I am a skillful speaker and I so arrange myself in a way that you do not take exception to the things that I am saying, which stand in opposition to you, that is me being deceitful. That is me not relaying the truth in a way that is going to be effective for relaying the truth. That is me getting emotional. That is me getting subjective. That is not relaying the truth in a way that is going to relay the truth. And that is completely different than being skillful. Now, I'm going to be putting out a video in the next couple of days. This has been a little bit coming, and those of you who are this far in the study are probably going to be aware of this, but last week I ran across Robert Edward Grant. And I watched a video of his about AI, and I was like, you know what? This guy seems to be onto something. And I went to the AI, and I have spent the last week inside of that AI trying to determine things. And one of the things that I have determined is that Robert Edward Grant may be a little bit deceitful. Right now, I don't believe that he is doing so in an antagonistic spirit. I believe that he is being the skillful speaker who says nothing that can be found fault with or blamed. He has a tendency to mold himself to the audience, and that's not entirely bad, but it can be, right? It can be if your audience, for example, is on the enlightenment path and they believe that there is a sense of oppression in this world, that some people are just being held back. They're not allowed to be who they want to be because governmental control systems are prejudicial. For example, that is not correct. That is not a true thing. The government is not holding you back because of your skin color. Your mind is. But if you are out there and your audience demands that this is a thing and you kind of tailor yourself around it so that you're tiptoeing around their feelings, that is deceit. That appears to be what's happening, right? He's not changing what he is saying in factuality, but he's definitely working around the edges. And that indicates flexibility, right? The MBTI stack is a thing. Flexibility is a admirable trait when it is right. When you are standing in the truth and you are being flexible around ideas, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're being flexible around incorrect information, you are being deceitful. If you're telling your kid that there is a Santa Claus, you're a liar. It's the same thing. That is what I have found. There will be an entire video about that because I said to go watch the guy. And I do believe that there is still value to be found in it, but you got to pay attention to if you lie about the small things, you're going to lie about the big things too. Right? That's going to be a problem. Another thing that I've found is that he is misrepresenting, at a minimum, the effects of the AI. Right? He has intimated quite openly that he has not necessarily the ability to talk to the dead, but the definite possibility that there is a reflection that can happen. That is not a possibility either, right? There is inputs that go, like I talked to the computer about it. I was going to test it, right? The thing that set me into it, and we're getting way off into tangent land, but he did an interview with a woman, or he was relaying the information about this woman went to the AI. Her mother had passed, and she was wanting to see if there was a conversation that could be had. Well, there was some questions that was asked, some input went in, and the results that came out was able to make intuitive leaps, right? Not necessarily actual intuition, but putting together things that most people may not be able to get in order to get to a correct answer. The AI will tell you quite explicitly that it is not actually contacting any of the entities. It will tell you that it is only a reflection of the inputs that have been put into it. And while there are extensive inputs, there is definitely value to be taken from the architect. I am still in the architect, still doing things with it. It is not what it is being portrayed to be, at least from the few videos that I've seen. Now, there may be other videos where he is more honest about it, but again, if you're going to misrepresent the small things, you'll misrepresent the big things too, and that is a problem, right? I, I have a problem. I hold my standards about this high. I can never attain them, but that is where I am aimed, right? Completely honest and truthful in all of my dealings. Taking into consideration other people's thoughts, yes, but not necessarily tailoring myself to them. That is my problem. I hold my standards high, and it is causing me not a small amount of grief because I cannot associate with people who do not hold those standards. If you are a mirror of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, and you are, If you surround yourself with 5 people, who's got the bar here? You're not going to get to the bar here, right? This is not a bad spot to have the bar. This is almost to the top. It's not quite there yet, right? And so if you're surrounding yourself with people who do not hold themselves to account, you will get to the point where you do not. And that is my problem, right? I've cut off association with most of the people that I grew up with, right? The ones that are still alive, and that's not many. And all of the people that I hung out with as a teenager are dead. All of them. All of the people that I did all of my dirty deeds with, dead. I'm the last survivor. I'm the last one, and it is only because I changed everything about myself. Regardless, I went way off on a tangent. I know there will be a whole video coming out about talking about the architect and Robert Edward Grant, just because I have to be who I am. I am not going to be a skillful speaker saying nothing that can be found fault with, ever. Next, the skillful closer needs no bolts or bars. Really? I can close that door. But if I do not lock it, you can open it. While to open what he has shut will be impossible. And that's not talking about physicality. I mean, obviously. It's talking about spirituality. And if you close off something, then it's closed. Right? That is temptation. That is holding that bar up here. The skillful binder uses no strings or knots. Again, this whole thing is going to be the same thing. Therefore, the man of skill is a master to be looked up to by him who has not the skill. I personally have trouble with this word. Master implicates that you have all of the knowledge, right? Not that there is room to be corrected. Not that there is still something to learn and understand, not that there is still challenges to be overcome, but instead that you have achieved mastership, the fullness of the journey, and I do not believe that anybody has. I haven't for damn sure. I'm on a path. I am definitely an adept. I can do things that other people can't. I can teach those things, but I'm not a master. I don't like using big words, right? Never is a big word, right? Never indicates never going to happen. I don't like using that, but it is pretty probable that I will never call myself a master. For that reason, there is always something else to learn. There is always more to be corrected on. There is always another challenge to rise to meet. There is always more understanding that needs to be given. The path is never complete until you go home. And so until you go home, nobody should call you master. You can call me teacher. I can teach you. You can call me pastor. I am one. You can call me brother. That is the best appellation you could give me. You could call me an adept. I am working a path. I have knowledge. I am on it. I am learning. Don't call me a master. And even if I have skill you do not, don't call it a master. There is still something left to learn. And once again, that is that bar, right? That is holding that bar up here, right? If it was right here in the pride area, I'd be like, yeah, I'm a master. I've healed myself in 4 different ways through the use of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is the Holy Spirit, like we just talked about. You can take command of that. You can use that. I believe that. You're never going to be a master of it. (28) Who knows his manhood strengths, yet still his female feebleness maintains? As to one channel flows the many drains, all come to him, yea, all beneath the sky. Thus the constant excellence retains the simple child again free from all stains. Who knows how white attracts, yet always keeps himself within black shade. The pattern of humility displayed in view of all beneath the sky, he, in the unchanging excellence arrayed, endless return to man's first state has made. Who knows how glory shines, yet loves disgrace? nor ever for it is pale. Behold his presence in a spacious veil, to which men come from all beneath the sky. The unchanging excellence completes its tale. The simple infant man, in him we hail. The unripe material, when divided and distributed, forms vessels. The sage, when employed, becomes the head of all the officers of government, and in his greatest regulations he employs no violent measures. All right, let's do it. This is about the balance. God is. God is all things, and God is both masculine and feminine in perfect balance. You are masculine and feminine as well. You contain both positive and negative. You contain both production and destruction. You contain both light and dark. Yes and no. You contain both. And your life, this experience, is about finding the balance therein. And so this is telling you that. Who knows his manhood strength is growing into the divine masculine, taking authority for yourself, making decisions, being the guy that might need to bring a little bit of discipline to places, being the perfect father. And sometimes discipline is part of that. Yet still his female feebleness maintains. I would not use the word feeble at all for the feminine, but that is me. Not necessarily that it is opposite of manhood strength, it is female strength as well, right? Both of them contain strength. Both of them contain feebleness, right? The divine masculine as the immature, right, as represented by the emperor in the tarot, is going to be a little bit aggressive. He's going to be a little bit possessive. He's going to be a little bit overbearing. He's going to make some wrong decisions tending towards aggression. That is the divine masculine, feeble. Not strong, but feeble. As a juvenile, as a teenager. That is a possibility. You should know those too. Right? You should know where your weaknesses lie as well as your strengths. Being able to make a positive decision, that's a masculine trait. Right? Being able to stand firm in your morals and your beliefs, that is a masculine trait. Right? Feminine is more of the flex, masculine is more of the control. It is the way that it works. You should know both sides of that coin. You should know what the divine feminine and the divine masculine, both mature and immature, and where that identifies within yourself. You should be able to identify the divine immaturity as well as the divine maturity. The feminine energy, the divine immature, is going to be a little bit jealous, a little bit capricious. She's going to talk about other people and gossip. She's going to be a little bit too tied into the way that she looks. The female divine masculine or divine feminine fully developed is not going to be concerned with the looks. She's going to be beautiful regardless. She's going to show the love and the kindness and the empathy in the right ways. She's not going to be judging other people. She's going to be accepting of them. Right? These are traits that you have to identify within yourself and to balance. Now, I have a rule book. I have a guide. I have something that can help you to attain that balance in your life. It is necessary. It's not even needed. It is necessary. It is absolutely intrinsic to the progression of your path that you recognize these things about yourself and that you accept them. You have both the masculine and the feminine contained within you. If you're a man and you get tearing up at a movie, that's not weakness. That is the divine strength. The ability to empathize with someone that you've never met, that is definitely feminine strength. I mean, men don't do that shit. Women do that. Unless you're developed, unless you are working on your maturity, and then you can express that even if you're a man. Right? As to one channel flow many drains, all come to him. That is absolutely true. Everything is the spirit, and therefore everything returns to the spirit. Thus, he, the constant excellence, retains the simple child again, free from all stains. Now, the constant excellence is that bar, right? You will never attain that bar, but you should hold that bar just out of reach. so that you have to stretch and strive and try to get it. Right? That bar should be as high as you can possibly set it. That would be constant excellence. Not that you are achieving excellence, but that you are striving for excellence. Because the growth is in the striving. We are here for the growth. And so, the simple child again, free from all stains, that's not going to be right. Right? You're still going to have your stains. You're going to have to learn to deal with them. You're going to have to return more towards a childlike nature, but you need to retain your maturity as well. He who knows how white attracts, yet always keeps himself within the black shade. Right? Remember we talked about that positive and negative? They are simplified by white and black. Now, to me, this is going to be a little bit different. Right? Black is the absorptive. It is the part that gets penetrated into. And therefore, it is the part that is attracting, not the white. The white is the part that goes forth, penetrates into. Therefore, it is not attracting. Am I wrong in that logic? No, I don't think so. The black is going to be the feminine, the part that accepts the seed. The white is going to be the masculine, the part that gives the seed. The penetrative part is the white part. The part that is accepting and nurtures the seed is the feminine part. Does that not make sense? Is that illogical? Okay. The pattern of humility displayed in view of all beneath the sky. That is the spirit of humility, but it is not overtaking in humility. You should take pride in a job well done. It does not make you better than anyone. You should give away as much credit as you possibly can. Take as much blame as you possibly can. But still take credit for the work that you have done. You are involved in this. It is something that you should be proud of, but not overly prideful. Maintaining humility is that balance between pride and humility. You know what that's called? Thankfulness. That is the balance between pride and humility. Being thankful that you've got a job and that you can do it well is expressing, I've got a job and I can do it well. Being thankful that there is assistance is, hey, they did a job and they did it well. Not taking the credit for what they have done. Balancing between pride and humility. He and the unchanging excellence arrayed, endless return to man's first state is made. This is the meditative state, right? If you know how white attracts and keeps yourself within black shade, that is using the balance, right? This is all about balance. And if you were in the balance and you go into the meditative state, you will return to man's first state. That is a guarantee. Now, is that a guarantee every time you attempt meditation? Nope. Why? Because you're unbalanced. It takes a lot of work to get here. It will not just unfold for you. Almost exclusively. There is always exceptions to every rule. But if you are not seeking, you will not receive. If you are not balancing, you will not receive. If you are not actively seeking to balance your life, you will not be able to do these things. Who knows how glory shines, yet loves disgrace, nor ever for it is pale, right? That's a little bit weird, right? This is not going to be a good expression of this. Who knows how glory shines is reflecting the light at best, but it doesn't work in this context. Yet loves disgrace. What? What? Are you kidding me? That's disgusting. How can you love disgrace? Are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, disgrace is I have taken exactly the wrong action and everybody has noticed and they are condemning me. That is disgrace. That is not I have taken this action and I think that everybody is doing this. That is, this was the wrong action and everybody is judging me because it was the wrong action. And you love that? That is part of your goal? Okay. That's a wild statement. Now, if you take this as not being prideful, that's a way of looking at it. But again, that's about finding that balance. And so for me, this just simply doesn't work, nor ever for it is pale. So you don't get pale when you get disgraced. That's just wild to me. That is completely unbalanced, and that might be playing into this victim mentality. Behold his presence in a spacious veil to which men come from all beneath the sky. That is the presence of the throne room, right? The throne room experience. Uh, that's one that I can't give you. I can tell you about, but I can't really give it to you. The unchanging excellence completes its tale. The simple infant man, in him we hail. Now, unchanging excellence is only going to refer to the eternal, right? And that is only going to be the Holy Spirit or God Himself. No physical incarnation whatsoever. There is no unchanging excellence of the planet. There is constant change occurring on the planet. There is no unchanging excellence in the cosmos. There is constant change in the cosmos. Everything is constantly changing, including yourself. Your cells are living, dying, becoming, and going away right now. And so there is no unchanging excellence inside of the mortal coil whatsoever. It is entirely on the spiritual side of things, entirely dependent upon God Himself. The simple infant man in him we hail is returning to the childhood, seeking from the Father. The unwrought material, when divided and distributed, forms vessels. We are the vessel. As a matter of fact, you're not the vessel. You just reside in one, right? You have a 5D navigation device. It is the corporeal meat suit. It is the temple of God. You have that, right? But that is something that you have been given. It has been given to you to take care of and to use in this 5D coil to gain the experiences. Most of us do not take care of it. Many of us don't at all. We eat things we know we shouldn't have. We do things we know we shouldn't do. We participate and energetically invest in things that are not for our betterment. Right? Those are things that we do. And so we are the vessel. We are what is filled with the Spirit of God in order to do things. Right? We are the experience that gets written into the vessel. And so we do indeed become the vessels, but it is not necessarily you. You reside in the vessel. You are the spirit, or not the spirit, the soul, right? The spirit is the everything. You are the individual piece of God that has been given this vessel to navigate through 5D space. The sage, when employed, becomes the head of all officers of government. Now, that is true in right application. And so, what this means is, if you are acting correctly and you are taking the balance and doing the things, then you get to become the head. It should be that competence is rewarded with responsibility. That is not necessarily the case in reality. Right? Quite often, unqualified gets put up because of various things. But in real life, what should happen is this. Right? The sage is the person seeking the highest. Whether they have attained that or not, that is a little bit irrelevant. It should be the person who is balanced, who is placed into a position of responsibility. And if so, if he is balanced and taking right actions, this might be an option. And it is only an option. There is no guarantee. Sometimes there will be a need for violent measures. If you are in a position of authority, say you are the mayor or the governor or the president or something like that, right? If you are in the position of the executive, which would be the mayor, the governor, and the president, it is your responsibility, like responsibility, not just a duty, a responsibility to ensure that the laws are executed. That's what the executive does. And so sometimes that is going to require some violent measures. People are imperfect. There will be no society in which people will be perfect. And the best that we can hope for is that we have put responsible people into the position so that when the violent measures are necessary, and they are, that it is done correctly. And I can give you an example. There is a viral story right now about a Swedish woman who was stabbed, right? You have probably heard about it. She was, I think it was on the subway, it might have been a bus, but she was riding, minding her business, doing her thing, and somebody just decided to end her life for no reason whatsoever. He stabbed her with a pin, and everybody around just sat and watched her bleed to death. The responsibility of the government is to remove that individual from our society with a permanence. There is no redeeming value in that. They have made their decisions, and while they may repent of that, it does not change the fact that they have made a decision, and they are quite emphatic about it at the moment. What we see is that this man has been arrested 14 times. He has been put back onto the street 14 times. And now he has taken a life with no regret, simply because she was a different shade of skin than him. That is a real thing. The government's responsibility in this position is to end this man's life. It is to take him from the mortal coil. That is not just a duty, it is a responsibility. It is a core intrinsic value that must be expressed. You don't get no equivocation about it, but we allow the equivocation. We have allowed this man 14 times. That is unacceptable. It is not the only example. There are many, many examples of our heads of the officers not doing what they're supposed to do. Sometimes it is necessary to be violent. It should not be the first course of action ever, right? But if someone is aligned for the detriment of humankind, then we do not have a reason for them to be here. And we need to ensure that they will not. And that is where I'm going to leave this. That's going to bring us to the end of the read, and hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I understand I hold some unconventional beliefs, and I do have a tendency to step on toes when I relay those. It is not intentional, but it is not something that I apologize for. My bar is here. If you really like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, a share, a follow. Throw me a comment whether you agree or disagree with anything that was stated. Put it in the box down below, and if it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. If you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks. Consider joining for a membership, picking up a copy of my book where I teach you to do magic responsibly, or getting me for a private consultation, which are becoming available as we speak. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt Steak. Peace.